Oh, and by the way, feel free to interrupt me at any time. It's pretty informal, so you don't have to wait for permission to speak or anything. This is for you, so ask as many questions as you need whenever you need.
Sure, sure.
So, we're taking a look here. So, we're looking at your old site because currently that's the one that's up and running. So, to look at the new site, you can either use that direct link to it, or another way you can get to it is going to the website and then Content Manager menu under your admin menu here and then Content Manager. And right up here, we have a drop down that'll switch between the current site and the redesign. When this switches, we will have like your redesign will be the primary site. One of the things we haven't talked about yet, though, is did you want to have this current one that you have up and running? Did you want like a backup of that so in case there's any things on these pages that you need that we didn't transfer or some sort of information, you can have a backup of that, and so we could have primary site, and then it'll be called like old site once this new one goes live. Did you want that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think at least for a period of time, it could be a month, could be 3 months. I would say, not forever, but yeah, at least initially, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah, sounds good. So I'll make a note of that just so I don't forget. But yeah, that's one of the things we do. We offer that too, is to back up your old one so that you can toggle between the two. So this little menu here will be used to toggle between the two now for your redesign when you're coming in here and checking out the pages, and then afterwards there'll be old site listed here and then your primary site. So let me make a note real quick. Once back
Okay.
up of current site. All right.
Kind of the nice thing about this is that other than our members, and they don't really come on a daily basis to the website, uh, it doesn't get a ton of activity. So it gives me time to just kind of get it launched and updated, but it's going to be nice to be able to go back as a reference point to the old
Right.
way to
Yeah.
look. So excellent.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what's nice. This little drop-down menu, I really do like that we have that. So when we're looking at things now for your current site, we have everything as pages. There are a couple that say grids. I don't actually know if this is. Yeah, it says continuous slideshow not configured. So some of the features that we have that are for these grid pages probably aren't updated for you guys yet. So there might be a couple things that might need some updating depending on if you'll use them. But for now, most of your pages that you have are actually just plain basic pages, but you do have some grid pages like your current homepage. It looks like it's a grid page. So I don't know if you go
Yeah.
in here and edit this too much,
Every once in a while, yeah.
but
I'm a complete novice, so it's
yeah,
pretty hit and miss, but
that's not a problem at all. So, but we'll talk mostly kind of about this grid page and how it works, kind of some best practices. But I saw when I was going through these pages here that most of them are just basic pages. So, kind of the difference between the two is that your basic page is meant for kind of just some simple text, kind of stuff like you have here, links, text. I see most people use them for things like privacy policy page or other kind of informational disclaimer pages or something like that. And when you go to look at those, they all look like this, where they have a general options and then an advanced options, and then this little window here with a kind of a basic editor. This
right.
editor you probably have seen in other parts of the system when you're drafting up certain emails or looking
Yep.
at other things. So this editor here is going to be the same for the basic pages, works exactly the same. And as you probably know, there's not a ton you can do with it. You can add images, but it's not really meant to be designed in a way where you have like different columns or different grids or anything like that to,
Right.
you don't really have like a left column for text and a right column for images or anything. It's all kind of all in one like this.
Yep.
So better for
Yep.
those like disclaimer and text pages. Grid pages, though, do allow you to, make those customized things. So for the redesign, what we've gone ahead and done, we'll just switch over to that, is I've changed pretty much everything over to grid. Unless, like, the contact page, I don't think we have that up and running quite yet. But I'll change that to grid, and that'll be like a way for people to send an email when they're interested in something to reach out to you guys. But grid pages, that's why we switched them all, is because you can make them very basic. You can still have those like plain text disclaimer pages, But now that they are all grid pages, when we did the migration, they're all able to be edited and stylized a little bit more if you want to. So if
Okay.
we look at your ACCP and SCP history page, just click that update and continue. We still see it has all the text, and it's in one single grid like this.
Okay.
But we could change this however you want. So
Right.
um,
Got it.
I'll zoom
Okay.
out a bit more, but essentially we could, if you wanted to stylize this a little bit more, some clients like to have a two-column format. So you could have maybe your text over here on the left, and you could put some of this stuff over here. So if I just copied this and put that over here, you could have your text over here, and then you could have some images or something. Just grab
Yeah,
an
I've
image.
worked in the grid editor kind of format a little. I'm not as
Yeah.
familiar. And I think you guys might even have like a YouTube module
Yep, we do.
about it.
We
So that helps a little too. But I'm a fair novice in there as well. But I've
that's
done it. Then I get confused. I'm like, where in the heck? How do I work this so that the stupid picture is centered and blah blah blah, and it just gets
yeah,
well,
it can be a little tricky at times. So for centering images, one little trick that we tend to show people is if you click on the image and then you click on the little image icon here, or if you double click on the image and go to this advanced tab, if you enter center dash block like that right here, it'll
oh
auto center the image in the container that it's in. So no matter what
oh
size
okay.
this is, it will center it. So you can expand it or shrink it, and it will
Oh,
always remain centered. That's a
that's
little
nice to know because
that's a
I've been
little
like
trick,
adding
yeah.
blocks and pushing things left and right.
Yeah, it can be a bit tricky. It would be nice if we could just use like the little paragraph center left and right align, but it doesn't quite work that way for these. So we just enter that little bit and it will auto center the image like that. But this is
Nice
kind of
trick.
essentially the idea of your grid page editor so that you can have a text and maybe some images or something, allow you to design it a little bit more. So it's not just kind of a wall of text. If for things like your history might not be super important, but I see some people use, like some clients will make, if they have an annual event coming up, it's a big thing, they want to showcase it, they want it to be kind of the center point of their website until that annual event is over. They'll make a page and they'll put a bunch of images, they'll put a bunch of text, they'll format it in lots of ways. They'll use the grid page editor to have all these things that make it a nice landing
Exactly.
page for people to come visit and be like, wow, there is something going on. I should pay attention to that. Whereas
Yeah,
that
no,
basic page editor just really doesn't allow for that type of stuff. So,
that's probably exactly how this is going to play out for us is we'll have a couple of pages on the site that will want to use the grid editor to broaden the look and feel of everything. The rest of them will kind of remain just as you said, just as a standard drop in there. There's your general text type stuff.
yeah.
So nice to know. And
So,
thanks for switching them over to grid so that we have that option.
yeah, I figure every time whenever I do one of these for either new clients or for redesigning a site for an existing client, I try to make them all grids just so that you can not have to worry about copy and pasting text and creating and deleting pages. We try to make it nice and easy for you. So
That
now that
also kind of helps me understand when this was originally created years ago, probably why the person who designed it was like, yeah, your homepage, you'll be able to do this, but the rest of it's kind of just a general setup. So that
mhm,
gives me an idea why they did it that way.
yeah. The grid page editor, I'm not exactly sure when we came out with this. It was before me. I've only been here for about a year and a half or so, but I know that it's newer. We have a lot of existing clients that don't have the grid page editor that still have some pretty old websites. And whenever they go through a redesign with us, we definitely switch them to it and try to showcase everything that it can do. So
Sweet.
the other thing, so let's kind of cover the basics of what this all means here. So up at the top, you'll notice all these numbers. Basically, this is how wide you want each section, each These blue boxes are called columns. So how wide you want each column. If you think of a page as 12 units wide, that is a full width of the page. So 6 and 6 would be a two column format, one 6 unit column and another 6 unit column. 4, 4,
Okay,
and 4 would be three 4 unit columns, so that would be a three column format. 4 column format. This would be a 6 column format. And then all these other ones are just, kind of variations of that. So a small left, a small right, and then a larger middle section. These are pre generated for your convenience, so you don't have to worry about, you know, restylizing them all the time. If you're like, yep, I want a 2 column format, you just come up here, you can click the 6 and 6, and it will make two empty columns for you to add whatever you need in here. You can resize these though to whatever you want. So if you want like a smaller left and a larger right, something like this would probably be
yeah,
like a 4 and 8, or something like that. You can definitely shrink and expand using the plus and minus with the blue boxes here.
okay,
Um, and that's going to let you adjust your content, and it does adjust dynamically to the size of it. So the as I was doing with the image there, like if this text was now in this box, it's now a little wider, doesn't go so far down on the page, and this will also shrink and adjust as needed,
okay,
depending on how wide you want that to be. And this also helps with like mobile phones and mobile formatting. Mobile phones obviously have slimmer screens, so this type of page is designed to be able to squish all of the things in a way that the mobile phones can read it. Because, as I'm sure you know, cell phones are pretty much the way people visit most things these days,
that's true.
unless they are kind of doing work and stuff like we are. But a lot of people, oh, I need to figure out when this event is. They'll go to your website on their phone real quick and they'll try to look it up. And so that's what the grid page is designed to do. So, in fact, we have a way to switch between them. So, right up here, we have all these different settings. I'll go through those in a second. But right here is a view. Like toggle. So right now it's on desktop mode, so it's trying to show you what it would look like if you're on a desktop computer like I am. But
Yeah,
if you're on a tablet, it tries to switch it and show you what it's like on a tablet. And you'll see that it's already kind of rearranged it. So instead of having a 2 column format on a tablet, since those are a little bit slimmer screen, it's decided to stack these so that you have your text and then an image. After that, you can still resize this. So if you decide, you know what, I still want a 2 column format, but I understand that it's a little bit, more narrow on a tablet, so I'm going to shrink it so it looks like this. You can still do that. So on a desktop, it would still look half and half like this,
uh-huh.
but on a tablet, it would be a little bit more friendly. Did I switch it to tablet? Oh, why did it not keep that? Oh, you know what? I think it's kind of freaking out on me there for a second. But the idea is that you'd switch on to it for a tablet, and it would maintain that size for the tablet. So the phone has the same thing. With that, if we again had some text, and I'll redo this, and we had some sort of image, so I'll redo this real quick. I think my computer was just it needed to refresh the page, so it didn't save any of this. There we go.
Oh, no problem.
We'll do that. Center block.
Yeah, that's a nice little trick.
And so then if we look at this on a phone, the same thing, it's going to take this and try to stack it, because on a mobile phone, you don't want to have your text be super tiny and hard for people to read. And images, same thing. We don't want to shrink those down too much, otherwise you can't read what the image says or can't really see the picture too clearly. So, um,
Right.
but yeah, you can see how it kind of decides to stack it instead of doing that side by side. But you can still adjust those as you think it should be, for those devices. So another thing with the grid page editor, we recommend kind of like as a standard or a best practice, is to only ever have one like one row's worth of content per row. I'll kind of clarify on that because I know that sounds a bit weird. So the blue boxes are the columns. So you can see we have this 2 column format with the 6 and 6.
Right.
the outside box, this gray one that they are in, is what we call the row. So each row can have multiple columns. But the idea behind this is to not have your columns do this, where they go under each other like this. If your rows start to look like this, where they start stacking, you see how it's really difficult to kind of understand what's happening here.
Yeah.
In that case, what you'd rather do, instead of having this column, which is messing things up, or instead of stacking it like that, you'd want to just go ahead and create another row. The system is designed to kind of eliminate. It does put a little bit of spacing between the elements, but it's better to have something like this, which this button down here is just a copy, so I'll go ahead and do that. But it's better to have something like this where you can change these up and add additional columns rather than have them all stacked into one box, because as soon as it starts doing this, your formatting is going to get a little weird and it's going to be hard for you to edit. So if you want to have, a paragraph and then some text, and then down here have something very similar but like a continuation. So what if we change this to, future challenges? Future challenges has some text, and you wanted to have an image next to it, and then you wanted to have ACCP today, and then a different image.
Okay.
Um, I'll just pick another random one that I found in here. And then you wanted to have something like this. Instead of having it all in one box, if you tried to add, another section and tried to do this thing
Oh,
here.
yeah.
You see how it gets kind of like messy, and then when you go to try to move this around, it does that jiggly thing,
Right.
and it gets super complicated. So what we recommend is go ahead and continue and make either a copy of whatever you have above, or use the tools up here to generate a new row for you, and then just continue your text. So it doesn't all have to be in one like this, is kind of the idea. The idea is to
Gotcha.
format your entire page into sections. So every
Okay.
paragraph, if you have here, if you want to have an image next to it like we have up here, then that should be its own section with an image next to it, and then this should be its own section with an image next to it. If it's just text, it's okay to put it in like it is here. But if you're
Right.
trying to, stylize it a little bit more, break it up into those sections. So,
Got it.
it's nice for, as another example, you can really vary the pages a bit more. So I'll just pick these as all text. It allows you to change styling on the fly too. So if you say, maybe you want this in a 3-column style. Just cover these real quick.
Okay.
Like that, you can now switch your style up between the things too. So if you decide, I want a 2-column format for a little bit, and then I want to switch it to a 3-column format, you can do that by just creating a new row and making a new 3-column format.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
so that's kind of the idea, is whenever you're changing the overall style of your page, or if you're making kind of like this, to split them up like that. Otherwise, you could have that weird box thing I was showing a second ago.
Got
Um,
it. And so you just create a new block and
yeah. And
start
so
fresh.
if we were to take a look at this, one of the options we have right here is this little eyeball. What that does is it strips out all of the boxes and stuff, all of these extra editor options, and tries to show you kind of what it would look like at a glance without any of the stuff. So we can see maybe we want more spacing, but the idea is you'd have a paragraph in your image, and then you have another paragraph in your image, and then you have, this 3-column format. You can see it looks a little bit better now that all the boxes are out of the way. And we can
Yeah.
also do save and then save as draft instead of saving it permanently. And save as draft will load a page preview, and this is this is your redesign. So now we have your new header and all that other stuff. So now you can
Can
see
you
what it
hold?
looks
Oh,
like.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, now we can see what it looks like, because this is a redesign page. We'll see what this actually looks like on your new website by saving it as a draft and previewing it this way.
Got
So,
it. Okay.
did you have a question?
To create space between each of those elements, would you just add, is it best just to kind of put a fresh block of 12 in between the two? And are those draggable on the grid screen?
You could. I would probably recommend that, depending on the size of the space, um, you could just, do an indent, something like that, and give
Okay,
yourself a little bit more space, depending on how much you want. The issue with adding a new block of 12, and yes, these are draggable, the arrows here will let you
got
drag
it.
the rows.
Okay.
But if you have really long content like that, I like to zoom out because it makes it easier to move stuff around. You saw it was kind of freaking
Oh,
out
yeah,
there for a
cool.
second. But the issue with having a new block like this is if we were to switch it into, say, tablet or mobile phone view,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
it's gonna add a new block of empty space, which is fine, I guess, if it's like a on desktop it works that way. But if you start having like other empty blocks, for I guess for example here, if we were to go back to desktop for a second and we were to just change this up to this and say you wanted to have, for whatever reason, your empty space was laid out like that, or I've seen some people do um, text kind of like this. When you switch it to mobile view, it's going to want to stack it, so your spacing will be a little bit different.
Okay.
So it could, at times, depending on how wide all of the content is, it could end up stacking it in a way that. Um, why is this
Yeah,
not
I always need to
responding
make
to me?
sure I'm kind of thinking of those terms of mobile view versus desktop versus tablet
Yeah.
when I'm doing this. Got it.
So that seems to be. There seems to be a thing going on for me with this. Whenever I switch to mobile view, it doesn't exactly like this. I think that's kind of an artifact of the fact that we're working on the old site and adding these grid pages. When you get into your redesign, you shouldn't have what I'm experiencing here. I was having a really weird thing here where I can't move this for some reason. I can't click on that.
All right.
I've had
Yeah.
that happen though with other redesign clients. Their old website kind of interferes with how the grid page works.
Okay.
So if you have anything like this while you're editing, um, just know that it will probably go away when we launch the new site because it's going to update all the files and it's going to update everything so that it doesn't have these weird things. If you do continue having issues, they'll let us know because it's not supposed to do stuff where this isn't movable.
All right. Got it.
But
Okay.
that kind of happens with our clients going from an older site to a new site. I've had stuff like that happen sometimes. So we're just gonna get rid of that, and then I think that should hopefully help things out. So we can always too, if you have any issues like that, go ahead and save it as a draft, and that'll at least save your work, and then you can go back to the editor and you should be able to move things around. You can refresh this page and reload it so that everything is now draggable again. So,
Okay. Okay.
um, but yeah, so you could just add little spaces like that,
That'd be
which
better than,
that would be a little bit better depending on how many spaces you want to, or how much space you want to have between your stuff. So future challenges now has more space between the start award, um, just by doing that indent. So yeah, the idea is kind of play around with it, kind of see what you think kind of works better, and then kind of save as draft or do the little preview eyeball and get a feel for what it's gonna look like.
got
Um,
it.
Now, the other thing is with the grid page, though, it's not just for content like this, all this text. So I'm going to get rid of this because it's really long. Um, but the grid editor can also do some other things, so I'll get rid of this one too. If we go to the 6 and 6, for example, and we click on this little notepad, this is, if you hover over it, it'll say Add Editable Region. Basically, what this means is it's creating one of these red boxes where we can choose an element. So these different elements, we have a lot. It's not just text. But what they
Right.
do is they try to pull information from other parts of your system. So depending on what you're using, you may want some of these. So, and you can always adjust this box so you can see more of them a little bit. But I've been using text and HTML. Now, I don't know how computer savvy you are or how tech savvy you are, if you have people that are tech savvy, but one of the options is like embed script. Excuse me. Give me a second. Sorry about that. I had a cough come out of nowhere.
Oh,
But embed script sometimes can be used. I've seen a clever use of it was somebody went online to like a digital clock countdown generator, and they said, yeah, we have 149 days until our event or whatever. They used some online tool that created script for them, and then when they use this, they just put the code for that countdown clock right in here and saved it. And on their website, then they had like a live countdown clock until their event was coming up. I thought that was
okay.
pretty neat. So it's stuff for that. You can also put in like videos and stuff, YouTube videos or other things like that. You can actually um, put videos and things like that on your website that's basically coming from another area outside of our system. It allows you to do maybe some custom things that our system can't do, small things like that. You may not use it too much, but there's a ton of different things. Accordion element will allow you to create those kind of collapsible drop-down menus. So, for example, in our area I always think of as like the event registration system, in here, if we were to look at some settings, you see all these collapsible whatever menus here. The accordion system essentially does that same thing, where it allows you to create little clickable areas that will expand and collapse. So if you want to divide your information up into these different categories, you can do
Okay.
that um,
Nice.
in the grid page editor. Um, and there's a ton. Another one that I tend to use because I'm one of our events people is the event feed. This will pull information directly from your calendar system on your site. So if we go back into your main admin menu and we go to your calendar admin down here, anything that's in here, so you have a 1/8/25, a 2/16/25. These are like, looks like they were just placeholder things from maybe when we did the redesign.
I
But
think so, yeah,
but
because I
if
didn't put anything in
because
there.
it looks like it's all Latin, and that's usually placeholder stuff we put in there. But say those events you wanted to have on your page here, we could go into this area and we could choose event feed. We click choose feature, and then we get some settings for it. So we could say how many events are going to display: three, five, maybe just one or two. If there's a description to it, how much of that should show before there's like a read more button that they have to click that will load a new page. And then we have other settings like description hard text break and ways to format the date that appears. So instead of September, which is this capital F, we could do a capital M, which is an abbreviated SEP for September, or a lowercase m for '09, as an example. So you can really customize how this appears. But if we click on update feature, we now see feature calendar 1. And if we were to save this as a draft again, we should, let me refresh this. We now have an event feed right here with some images that
So is that actually on our home screen currently?
this right here, I don't believe so. I don't think you guys have an event feed.
Well, I mean, on the redesign for our homepage, I
Oh,
think there is a,
yeah, let me go to this. If we go to the home page up here. Yep, right here. So that's how that's being generated, is actually pulling all of this information, this Latin stuff, from the calendar system right here. So what you would basically do is just create your calendar entry, whatever it is, whatever your event is coming up.
right?
If we were to edit this, and we could see they set the dates, and then we could see what they added for descriptions and images and stuff like that. So that's where that image right here is coming from. But it's pulling all of that information automatically. And the good thing about this is you can have a feed like this on your homepage, and then maybe you want to have a different kind of event feed on a different page, or you want another page that shows them as well, such as this history page for some reason. If you wanted to have an event feed, you could have them pull in that information too. And there's settings for this. Let me turn that off so I can come down here and edit it. There's settings right here that will allow you to choose a calendar category. So let's say you have big annual conference type events or seasonal conference things. a spring, fall, winter, summer conference. You could have a category called conferences that you set your events to, and then you can have a calendar feed that shows just conferences versus your other ones. So if you have smaller events that happen, monthly or bi-weekly or something like that, you can have another calendar feed that shows just the bi-weekly events. It allows you to basically customize and organize your feeds and calendar system so that people can see what are the big things that are upcoming and then what are maybe the smaller ones that might not be quite as important to you guys coming up.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so the grid page editor has basically just a ton of these different widgets, and I don't really have time to go over all of them, but
Sure,
the
sure, no.
idea is that you can use these such as slideshows or a login form or a news feed populated from our news manager module on our site. Contact form, so that's what we typically change the contact page to is you enter an email. So if you want an email going to your email whenever somebody has a question for you guys, it'll send you an email. You can put your email here, and then these are the different things that it'll prompt. So do you want them to put in their organization name, phone number, email, subject, and that type of stuff. You can
Okay.
kind of customize this a little bit more too, but if we just went ahead and updated that, save our draft, and then we'll refresh this page to make sure that everything's updated. We now see we have a contact form over here that has
Got
the
it. Okay.
name and all that. So that's really what the power of the grid page editor is, allow you to do this type of stuff. Where before you had just kind of text, now you
Right.
can have side by side images and different automatically pulled in information from your system, which makes your job a little easier because that way you don't have to rewrite things. If you have events, you don't have to copy and paste images and text from one page to another page. You can just have one feed and then tell each page to load that feed. Um, and
Got it.
and then
Okay.
and then you can have that display as in as many places as you want. And if you make changes again to like the calendar system, if you added a new event, it's going to update those feeds automatically for you on several pages. If you have 6 or 7 of these for some reason, it's going to update all 6 or 7 accordingly, so you won't have to. um,
Excellent.
so it does a lot of things in that regard. So my recommendation is if you're curious and you just have some time to play around with it, go ahead and kind of play around with this system, see what we have to offer, kind of get a feel for it. You can add new content spaces like this. You don't necessarily have to create new rows. If you want to have text and then a feed right under the text, but still in the same format, you could do
Are
something
there
like that.
little tutorials or um, blurbs about each of those elements, or do you just get in there and mess with it?
You kind of have to get in there and mess with it. We don't really have a description for it. That would be nice, honestly, but I don't think if we did, it's gonna be on the help desk, but that probably hasn't been updated in a little bit. They kind of keep adding stuff to it. I've only been here, like I said, for about a year and a half, and every time I go somewhere, I see something new. We're always
Okay.
constantly updating things. So, um,
Okay.
do we have grid page editor? I'm just curious. Content manager. Da, 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 editor, grid page editor, video, editable regions. Maybe it's in here.
Okay. So there's,
There is some stuff. Yeah, they do give you a
yeah.
little bit of a description of what they do, but like I
Excellent.
said, there
Excellent.
might be some stuff in here like like you might not see the slideshows or some of the stuff there.
Yeah, I've used that a couple times, but yeah. Okay. Good.
So let's also kind of recap how you get there again, because I know I went quick. From your main admin menu, you can just go right up here to Help Desk, and then that's going to show all of your different modules off to the side. The
Right.
arrows here expand them so you can see all the little subcategories or whatever. And then, of course, you can come here and view tickets, and there's the button that'll take you straight to our YouTube channel to watch all those videos if you want. We do try to have a current and updated video for every module, and we even try to make little small sub videos for it. So if it's something in detail, so like we had the content manager, but what about specifically the grid page editor? We'll have a video for the grid page editor.
Yeah.
So
Excellent.
So there is that. So that was kind of the main thing that I wanted to cover today, because I think that's kind of the newest feature that you may not have played around with much since you guys are now getting a new website. To recap, another thing too, wanted to show you how you can get to your so you can see the redesign pages a little bit more. So um, I'm just going to get rid of these little design changes that I did here. And I'm going to officially resave this so we don't have that draft. So we'll go back to the content manager, zoom out
Okay.
a little bit. And so we want to make sure we're toggled onto redesign. Click that go button so that it loads everything. Then if you want to view a page, you can actually just click the name of it, these blue links, or any
Right.
of the little links on the side here, and you can view what it looks like on your redesign site. So you have your new header and stuff like that. So like for this page, this is a bunch of images, and I think this is just
Yeah, I put those there after our fall conference.
yeah, and I think that was using the basic like normal page editor. You
Yeah.
can now you can see that we've migrated the images to be kind of in these different columns and stuff and formats. So now you can adjust these if you want to have, these be a little smaller and you want to have more images per row. You can do that too. Um, you can also adjust these as you need. Maybe this is a little too big or something. You can click on the image, either click that little image icon or double click on it. You can adjust the size of it right in here, so you can make it a little smaller if you want.
Yeah, that's kind of how I added those in,
Yeah.
just how you're doing it there.
So, but yeah, you can now rearrange this so that it can use, the grid style a little bit more. We tried to throw them in there as best we could, but now you have the power to really adjust this and make this feel a little bit more, complete the way you want it to be. Center images, format them, put them together the way you want to. Because I know that standard page editor was not probably very user friendly when it came to adding all of these before. So.
Yeah, it was a little bit interesting, but I got them in there. So, but yeah, that'll make it easier.
Because let's take a look at that. That was
As long as you were just dropping into core docs there, did you have any issues migrating core docs over?
I don't believe so. Um,
Okay.
I was gonna look for that page in the old one, but let's go back to the redesign. So yeah, let's go to core docs. It was member only core docs. So yeah, we've migrated these. There were a ton of pages. I was actually a bit surprised by how many there were, but we got those all migrated for you.
Okay.
I know you mentioned before that some of them you said um, it was under members
Yeah, we
only,
had some of the
and like they're not
archive.
really showing. I wonder if that's because they're just hidden or maybe they're not linked properly. Because I know you have that archives page, this one here, where it
Yeah, so
has all
some
of
of
them.
these that are towards the bottom, some of the older ones, maybe it was something that I did over recent years that the links broke or something, and I was moving things or doing things in a way that is like, oh, well, that one just got deleted, or now it's no longer linked correctly. I don't know, but there's a handful of those that are towards the bottom, the older ones that,
Okay.
but as long as you didn't specifically run into any issues, that's fine. As long as you were just migrated them over,
Yeah,
it
we
gets,
were able to get them migrated kind of as it was before. It's just now using the new header and new footer and stuff
yeah,
with the new formatting. So we didn't have any issues doing the migration.
okay.
I would say, try to check in here because this is the list of them. See if you can find some of the ones that are missing. Like you said, the
Yeah, I need
older
to make it a
ones. There,
project.
it's probably some of these. They probably just the link got deleted because I did notice like you did not have quite so many of these on that archive page. So I'm
Yeah,
guessing that
I didn't
that's kind of what's going on.
see the way that previous person before was doing my job, the previous person built these in. I was like, there's a way to, I see why they kind of built it that way, but I didn't know that it had to be structured. So I just kind of throw them onto the archive page.
Hmm.
And rather than have them all stacked below the archives.
They don't necessarily need to be this way. It does help so you can see easily fall 2009, summer 2009, but they don't necessarily need to be this way. It's mostly for your own benefit instead of having a long, long list of things you could, um, kind of see things a little bit better. But, you know, um, it's really however you want to do it. So if the previous person before you did it this way, you don't have to continue doing it. It's however you want to. We just kind of kept the same way so that you could find everything. The
Yeah.
other thing is
So if
too
I
with
was to
these.
delete,
Go ahead.
like
Sorry.
say that one right below there that says winter 2012,
Yeah.
if I was just to delete that, is that going to blow away that particular issue? If it's not, if it's linked on the archives page, is that going to totally blow it out of there?
So it won't let you. If any of these pages are kind of nested like this, so Winter 2012 has these
Right,
five under it, it's not going to let you actually delete this because all of these are dependent on that this one exists, for example. So first, it will try to stop you for things like this. If there's any pages underneath it, it won't really let you do that. If we click on that, it'll say can't delete. There's still pages linked to it.
right.
So we'll
Okay.
go back. But to answer your question, if you do delete one of these, so say you delete legal and legislative updates, and that was linked on your archives, that would invalidate the link. So if that was on your archives page somewhere in here, you would click this and it would say URL not found, and people would see an error. I do kind of have a suggestion for this to make your
Okay.
content a little bit easier. Um, there is a whole like newsletter broadcast message system where you can kind of create stuff like this, and then we have ways of consolidating them and updating them. It makes things maybe a little bit easier.
I
Still
looked at
probably
the
gonna.
newsletter thing and I can't remember if it was you or somebody else from MemberLeap that was like, we don't have a lot of people using newsletter because it didn't ever really get developed the way we hoped it would. So typically, and they've never updated it recently. They haven't really brought it, forward in its
Yeah.
design.
So probably what they're talking about is actually an older one called the newsletter editor. This right here. Now, this is an older module. It's something that we did come out. I don't know what ended up happening with it, but we decided to make something better, basically. So we don't really support that anymore. But what we do is in the broadcast email messages area, just like you've been sending messages over here.
Yeah,
The I don't know if these are the standard editor. Looks like these are the standard editors.
yeah.
But we do have this advanced editor, and it says slash newsletter here. It does allow you to make um, kind of a newsletter esque. I don't need this page anymore. Uh, Option for you where it will consolidate these pages. So I can show you that kind of how that works as an example. So
I
in
am interested because our editor is trying to come up with a way for, because currently we have our core docs published by a third party,
Okay,
and we might want to bring it in-house. And if this,
right. Yeah, that makes sense. Have you played around much with this advanced editor?
no,
Okay.
no, not really at all.
Okay. So yeah, that's usually one of the other things we try to cover in these general trainings is this and the database, which I assume kind of the database you probably know enough about because you've been using our system. But if you have questions on that, we can always talk about that too.
Yeah, as
So we,
long as nothing's really changing with our member database.
no, not with this redesign. We're pretty much focused on the website. So your database and all your member data isn't changing. So there's really
Great.
not too
Okay.
much in terms of that to talk about. There might be some new updates over the years that we've had in there, but if you're happy with how you guys are managing billing and members, you don't need to change it.
For now,
Um,
yeah,
so,
good.
and if you do have questions about that, feel free to let us know. We're more than willing to help you out. If you feel like something could be done a little bit better, you can ask questions for sure.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so let's talk about the advanced editor. So the advanced editor here, again, let's kind of just cover how we do that again. We go to our broadcast messages and we have new advanced message. You can also see under here we have email templates, advanced editor templates, and then advanced editor categories. Basically, what the categories does is allows you to create, basically a category of mostly used for the newsletter functionality. So say we want to do add new category, and you said core docs was something that QRR was one that you were doing in outside and you wanted to bring it maybe in house. So we could use
Yeah.
this as an example. Um,
Okay.
what this setting here does, this newsletter category, it says it creates a link to a list in the members area. Essentially, what that does is for your members when they log in, under their communication tab, under I think it's under message boards, might be above it, but basically under this tab in general, there will be core docs just listed exactly like this right here. So we click on continue and actually refresh this. We now see core docs is listed right here. And people click
Okay.
on that. Any of your newsletters that you create that are given the core docs category will show up now as a list for people to view from their member menu. Nice and easy. And if you want them on your website, we have a way of doing that too. So if you don't want it right here, you can leave it unchecked. That's absolutely fine. But that's what that option does.
Okay.
This legacy newsletter is if you were using that old editor we were talking about a minute ago. Sometimes people like to add those categories to this one if they're migrating from the old one to the new system. But for you guys, I would just leave that not
Okay.
selected. So then we have our categories now and templates. Our system comes with some default templates. These would be for any that you custom create, so you can make a template and then reuse it for your next Core Docs issue without having to redo everything on the editor. So once you create it once, you just create some empty boxes for you to copy and paste some information into later. So we're going to take a look at that. Let's click on New Advanced Message and Editor here. And we'll close out of those pages because I don't need those anymore. And so by default, it always populates your account when you're logged in. So it's got my name, but you can schedule send date and time. This is if you really want to email it to people. If emailing is not your goal, if it's just to have it as a newsletter for people to see on the website, you can pretty much disregard this.
Okay.
Subject is just basically going to be the title of your newsletter or the subject of the email when it gets sent out. So I'll just call this one test of maybe core docs. Ooh, I'll get rid of the space. And then category. So right here is where we assign it to the core docs category. And then publish as newsletter will make it show up on this category list. So it's been assigned to the category. Now we just have to publish it saying that people could view it on that category list I was talking about a minute ago.
All
And then
right.
publish date is whatever, that's how it's going to organize it. So if you pick today and then you had one for tomorrow and one for yesterday, this one would be right in the middle of it. It would say, yep, published on that date, and it kind of orders it chronologically for you. So we'll say it's published today. And then we have to pick a template. So we have all of these that say standard are just the ones that come with by default. If you create your own template, it'll say custom next to it instead. So let's
Okay.
just pick basic gray newsletter. And we click
Okay.
continue. That's going to load up this editor here. Uh, and so we see we have a logo, we have some images that we can add, we have some headlines and text. This is all customizable and is pretty similar to that grid page editor. It's done a little bit differently, but the idea is pretty similar. So you have a row, which is this gray box or this blue box that everything's highlighted in right now. And then inside the row, you have these different elements and columns, if you want to think about it, kind of like the grid page editor.
Looks a little
Um,
bit like Canva,
Yep,
if you.
yep. If you're used to Canva, this is very, very similar to that from what I've heard. I haven't used it much myself, but yeah, it's that or what's the other one that people talk about? I can't remember it, but there's another one that's pretty common. This is a pretty common way of doing things, so I'm not surprised. So the idea again is pretty similar. So in your rows tab over here, you can click and drag and add, an empty row like that, and then it says add your content. So if you go to your content tab, you can add I want an image here. That will allow you to pick an image. If you want a two-column row like we were doing with the grid page editor, it'll come up with two empty boxes, and then you can say I want text over here and an image right here, and you kind of click and drag and design it the way you want to. Um,
That's nice. Now, is there, I'm just assuming it probably is, a way to save, once you've got one done, save it as a
yep,
template
right
And
up
then
there.
you can come back and just rip one article out, put the
Yep,
next one in kind of thing.
exactly. Exactly. So that makes it nice and easy. If you're going to do your core docs issues, you can come up with a template and a theme that you like, and then people will be able to, view that as that template every time. You can always pull in that new template and just strip out the text and add new images or whatever you want to do, but it will always maintain that template. So that's what we do up here. If we come up with a style, so maybe we don't want this, we can click on this row and click the trash can. That'll get rid of it. And then maybe we have lots of different things. So inside the row, if you click anywhere with the actual row, we see row properties appears here. So we could change the background color of the row itself, and then we could change the background color of the content areas. So if we wanted to
Yeah,
make that a different color, you know feel free to
that's awesome.
customize it. So you can really come up with your own color scheme. You can also do that for the newsletter overall. So the total background color, if you wanted to change, from that gray to a black or something, you could do that. But it allows you to customize it so that even if this is, you know, this color and you want this to stand out a little bit more, you can. You can also kind of adjust the width of it. So, do you want it to be a little narrower? Do you want it to be a little wider?
Oh,
For
okay,
emails
nice.
specifically, emails tend to use about 700 pixels wide. So, I would say if you're going to
Okay.
email anything out to people, around that mark is probably where you'd want it. Because if it goes a little bit beyond that, they uh, start to smush it together in case your screen's a little smaller. So things like
Sure.
same thing
Yeah.
like we had before. There's a way to toggle between desktop and mobile. You could see what it looks like between the two in your editor.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and so, yeah, that's kind of the idea here. So I usually recommend about 700 pixels or so if you're going to email it out. But you could stretch that all the way out here and have a nice wide newsletter for people to click on your website if you're not going to email it out to people. So really, again, you can play around with this, even the link colors. So when you have, click here to go to somewhere, if you don't want that to be blue, you want it to be green, you can do that. Um,
All right.
and so you can customize it however you want. The other nice thing about this is in the rows section, there is this drop down which shows things like your calendar events. So if you have something coming up, like those Latin events we had, um, we can it does. Let's do calendars all. There we go. It will kind of pre-populate your events here. So we could click and drag and add this, and it has all of your events listed with the dates and a button to click and view it on an actual calendar. And you can always move this around and edit this too. So if you don't want this to be black, you want it to be a different color, you could change that. You could rename this and change that too. Um, and,
Excellent.
and feel free to move any of this around. Each one of these things too inside here can be dragged. So even if you don't want, let's do a new one. Do something like this one with all the blue links. Um, let's say you want this one with the blue link. You want this event specifically up in here. You can click and drag it like that and
Nice.
rearrange it without having to actually like do anything weird. These are able to be kind of stretched and moved around to wherever you want them in your newsletter. And you
Is
can just get
there
rid of whatever you want.
for general text? I mean, of course, we have a lot of doctors, so there's a lot of medical terms and stuff that don't fall into a spell check, but
Hmm.
is there a spell check thing for the text, like for the article within here?
I believe so. I actually don't know off the top of my head. So what if we
If not, I
did?
was just thinking you would have to
Yeah, it
do that
does. It does have a
before.
little underline. It doesn't really probably doesn't know what this means. So we're to type in like type in a word. Should just use your browsers. Yeah, right there. So you can recommend. It does highlight and underline, so you could use like autocorrect and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, good.
So
So that if one of our members is the editor,
mhm.
can I change their login authority to administrator so that they can get in here and do this?
Yes, and you can actually change it so that they only have access to this. They don't necessarily have to be an admin for your whole system. So
Okay.
we can should be in the database. If we don't have the option on, I can turn it on for you. But inside a record,
Definitely would want that turned on.
yeah,
So,
assign admin permissions right here. We have a list of all the ones you can give them, and one of the ones is the where is it? Not newsletter editor, broadcast messages right there.
oh,
So
okay.
if you give them that, what happens in that case? So we'll just who is this? This is Robert Abrams. All right, let's remember that
Okay.
because I'm just gonna take a brief look as his account. So Robert would log in. He would see this tab here that says admin permissions, broadcast email messages. He also gets access to the help system and drip marketing because that is sort of broadcast emails, it looks like. Um,
Okay.
and then this end masquerade is just for me to log out of his account. But basically, yeah, he would see broadcast email messages and this, but he doesn't see the full admin menu. So he wouldn't have access to like the event system or your calendars or your member billing or
Excellent.
anything like that. Uh,
Okay.
this is actually what I did. I think I turned it on recently. This is what I did for Justin at the time because I was gonna talk with him a little bit more about the system and probably give him full admin access and stuff at a later time. But for the content, I just gave him that temporarily, um, and that's what
I
I
think
did for him. So
yeah. Yeah, he's been great for us, but he's military also, so
yeah,
he's not available a
he
lot of the time.
mentioned that, and so that's no big deal that things kind of had to shuffle around. I'm happy to work with you too, obviously. So, but yeah, that's I think that's what I did for him. Oop, I did not spell Justin right. I pressed the wrong key. Yeah, right there.
He's also our IT committee chair.
Okay. So, did you want to give him just full admin access? Because I don't think he had one with his account. He just had member access. So I
Yeah,
gave
for
him.
now, let's go ahead and do it
Okay.
because he'll be wanting to get in here and take a look see, and he's extremely responsible and careful.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it
we're
was
lucky
one of those
to
things
have him.
where, sometimes our clients kind of assign people to oversee parts of it, and it's like, we don't necessarily want them to have access to everything, so I wasn't going to do that without asking you first. But yeah, we'll give
I
them full
appreciate
admin
it.
access, no problem. So,
That's
um,
excellent. I'm so glad that we talked about this because that is a project we've been trying to do, and our editor will be thrilled about that.
yeah, so I know we're kind of running low on the time. I don't know if you probably have other
Yeah,
things
I
you got to
just had
get
a
going
couple of
to.
other questions
Yeah,
for you. Then, yeah, I know that we want to keep it quick here. So the other question I had, if you want to just go, you can exit out of here, go to the home screen, the new revamped version.
yeah. Let me just load this up here. Redesign.
And I just noticed at the top menu structure there,
Mhm.
the very top, it's exactly the same, obviously, except for that one thing that says the myths of I need more staff. I'm not sure where that came from. So
I
that was a
wonder.
weird thing. I was like, that's really
I didn't
updated.
notice
Yeah.
that. Where did that come from?
And so when I went to the page, I'm like, I don't know who this is or what it is. So
Interesting. I had one of our other members import these pages, so I wonder if that somehow got mixed up somehow. But we'll get rid of that. I have no idea where that came from.
yeah, it was strange.
So yeah, let's just get rid of that.
The
So
rest of it seemed fine.
yeah, curious. What does this say?
Yeah, it was like
What?
he's a doctor, but I'm not familiar with this. So
Do you have any idea who this Bruce guy is at
we could
all?
look him up to see if he's a member, but
I'm just curious
I
what
just know
happened.
that we never had a page for it before.
Yeah, Bruce. I don't think so.
Maybe he was a previous member and dropped. You can check dropped
Uh,
if you want.
I gotta switch to everybody.
Handler, there he is, dropped.
Yeah, interesting.
Oh, prospect.
Yeah,
So he
he's a
might have
dropped
written an article.
prospect. Maybe he wrote. Yeah, he could have written some sort of article or something.
He probably did. But
Erdman.
yeah, we can and delete that
Oh,
page?
it's different. This is Bruce Herdman and this is
Oh,
Bruce
Herdman.
Handler. So different Bruce. So no, not related at all. You know what? If you don't want it, I don't want it. So let's get rid of it. So we're just gonna
Yeah.
click on delete and we're gonna delete that right there.
Go ahead and blow it out of there.
Yep, so
Okay.
that will be gone now. We'll refresh that. I have no
Then as
idea where
long
that
as you're
came
on the,
from. So,
yeah, I was just, what the heck?
yeah.
But otherwise now on the rest of the home screen here, looks like you guys have built it according to the, one of those few options that you gave us as a layout. Looks
Mhm.
great. Um, if we flip the switch and go live, is this, something I can get access to real quick? The first thing, I guess, at the very, very top, the logo splashed across the screen there.
Mhm.
I think we were hoping that that would be an area that we could add other pictures to.
I think it
That
is a
would,
slideshow. I think your logo's just in there as a placeholder image.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think it's just a slideshow. It's using the homepage slideshow, and what we do for that is we go into the content manager menu under slideshow manager, homepage slideshow. Yep, and it just has your logo. So if we wanted to have a different image, we should be able to just throw that in there. I think that is just, again, kind of a placeholder. I have
Okay.
like a test image I can show you. Let me
That
see.
that's pretty much what I was expecting. So at this point, do I have the ability, if I go to the new redesign,
Hmm.
to edit all of those elements on the front page at least
Yeah, pretty.
before we go live?
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much all of them are editable. The only things that really aren't editable would be the things like the header. So the this stuff up here. The actual pages and links here can all be changed in the content manager itself.
Okay, so the header would be something back end that you guys would have to
Yeah.
do.
And the links on here, like so home, about, education, all that is coming from your structure right here.
Sure, sure.
So as long you can hide those, you can have about hidden or something if you didn't want to have it right here for some reason. But like the logo, the search bar, the member login button, that's hard coded in by the designers, and then the footer stuff down here, that stuff. I
Same
think
thing.
right here these are the pages still coming from the content editor. So um, as we have like copy of whatever. I'm curious about the footer and why that is. Are these just showing the same pages that are up here?
It
Because we
looks,
usually don't display pages down here, but you guys probably asked for that with the design, which is absolutely fine. It's just typically we have things like,
I
powered by
think
Memberleap, and
so.
that's about it.
Justin
So,
was probably like, yeah, let's just do it like that because that was the way the layout was that we chose.
yeah.
So that's fine. And then back on that home screen, well, yeah, you can, each of these elements as we pair up, I can start editing this before we go live, all of this
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff here.
Yep,
And then are
absolutely.
those top four blocks there, the join, the events, the resources, and the fellowship? Can I change those?
You can change the text. You could change like the join link and the text underneath it. The actual image is probably what this empty block is here. Looks like there's some code in here. So you wouldn't really be able to change like the handshake or the event calendar or the resources file probably by yourself, but I could probably have our design team make a change if you don't like the
Okay,
actual icons. But yeah, the this like Latin text and stuff, you can change that to whatever you want. If you don't want to have anything, you could probably leave it empty. I'm not sure if this is designed to shrink if there's nothing in any of these boxes or how exactly it looks. But feel free
yeah,
to
I
play
was,
around with it. And if you do have any troubles, we actually do save revisions of every page. So if you go to your home page and you click on edit, down at the bottom, there's a show revision history button. You can see who made
right,
all those changes recently.
good,
So,
okay.
and some of them might list our staff. So Jovame is one of our people that is one of our designers. I think she built the new website for you. So if it says there was a bunch of changes by her, it's because she was designing it. So,
Okay, all
um,
right.
but
Well,
yeah,
that's
so you can
great.
see that in case you mess something up, you're like, I didn't mean to do that. We have revision history, and in the case of something really going wrong, let us know, and we should be able to restore it, no problem.
I think I've seen that before. So this gives me a great place to start. And then, so I can go in there and edit. And
Hmm.
then what do I just give you guys a heads up and say, hey, we're done as far as this. Go ahead and flip the switch and now it's live. Is that how that
Pretty
works?
much. I mean, like where we're at, I don't remember. Let me look real quick. How many trainings you guys have? You get two training sessions, so this kind of
Right.
counts as one of them. But if you if you want to, let's say have another training session about maybe more in depth that email newsletter option. I was just gonna do a save as template real quick so that we could pull
It
this
might
up
be
later.
something where, yeah, maybe a couple of us could get on the second training with you if that was the case.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. These trainings are for you guys. So you have another training if we want to talk about like the email template or more parts of the system or more parts of the content page. Really, the training, since you're an existing client, is kind of whatever you need. You feel you are not super comfortable with that you want to talk about. I am not quite sure all the different features that you use for your members. You got your member menu and you do have some message boards here, but I don't think you have any boards set up. So, you
Yeah,
know,
we haven't really, because it just doesn't get a lot of activity.
yeah.
And then if we do try something, people don't, I mean, these people are physicians and medical professionals in jails and prisons across the country. They don't come here very often unless they have to.
Right,
So
yeah.
we would add something and be like, okay, nobody's using it, rip that out. And so on and so forth. So it's been pretty basic. We're just now at a point where we're growing enough and wanting to do things differently that this was a great thing for us to do the revamp. So
Yeah, yeah,
the
makes
timing's
sense.
right.
Yeah. So if there's anything that you feel like, maybe you want to try and you're not sure how you do it, or like I said, the email thing, we talked about that since you have some interest in that, or the newsletter editor, email newsletter editor, they're kind of interchangeable because they use the same module, the broadcast messages. Um, but another thing you could do is if you're poking around like our help system, you're trying to look up some information and maybe you see stuff on the forms builder and you're like, I don't really use that, or the survey module, you're like, I don't really know anything about that, but you think you might. You can read about it in here, and then if you are like really interested and you think it would be a benefit to you guys, let me know and I can definitely set up a training with you guys to talk about that specific thing if you want that set up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been in this menu. I've watched some of the training videos. I try to use up as much as I can before I reach out to you guys, but you're always amazing. We greatly appreciate it. So this is a great starting point for me. I'll get in there and start working on the homepage, looking around with everything. Well, now that I know that what I do, I can save and it'll stay. And before we actually go ahead and flip the switch.
Yeah, yeah, and you'll be able to view it at any time, like I said. So if you make changes to your homepage, you click on those links, like the home link there, and it will show what it will look like when it goes live with the new header and the new images and everything, all your changes that you've made. So, um, yeah, you can really go through here and poke around and play around with it some more. And if you have any questions at all while you're going through this, or you need a little help, maybe you have an example of a page you're like, under members only, I'm looking at core docs and I can't figure out how I would get it to look like maybe a two column format. Do you have any ideas? Feel free to reach out to me. We're here to help and to
Okay,
get you guys up and running however you think is best. So, um,
sounds great.
I know like the grid page editor might be the big one because a lot of your content wasn't using it before. So, any questions that come up, let me know.
You got it, Nate. Well, greatly appreciate it and great job with everything. Then also the developer, if you want to let her know, but that was a great start.
All right, yeah, I will forward your information because we love hearing good feedback, and never hurts to have anybody have some good feedback.
Yeah.
So,
And then
um,
I'll also go ahead and make sure we get into that billing and pay that second half. So that's good.
Okay, awesome. If you have any issues at all, you know where to reach me. Feel free to just reach out at any time. At this point, I think I'll kind of just wait for your input. I think on if you're having any issues with the content, I'll probably reach out to you. However often is needed. If you have an existing issue you want me to work on, for sure I can help you with that. But I'm thinking to give you time, I might just message you weekly or so and be like, hey, how's it going? If you need more time, I don't want to bother you, so let me know if you're like, hey, I'm not going to get to this for a month or something. Just want to
No,
stay
that's
in contact
perfect.
so we can make sure that I'm not missing anything. I want to make sure you are ready to go and not having any issues with any part of our system. I can get you trained. We just don't want to run out of time because I don't know when you thought you would want to have this up and ready by. So just trying to make sure we
Initially,
fit any deadlines we can.
yeah, I think we're within it. We didn't have a hard deadline. We were just hoping to kind of get it done by sort of the end of 2023,
Hmm.
beginning of this year. And so we're on that. And so I would say probably at the outset, a couple of weeks from now, this should be done. But I'd like maybe since we have so many other things going, I'd like a week or so to get in there and keep fumbling around. But I think it's probably not going to be too long.
Absolutely. So you know what? I'll give you some time then. How about a week or so? I'll reach back out to you and see if you have any questions on stuff, and we'll go from there. And if you have any
That
questions
sounds
before
great.
then, you let me know, and I'm more than willing to help you out.
Sounds perfect, Nate. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate all of the hard work, and we'll talk next week.